We're getting some more people in here. What a beautiful day it is outside. I am at Fremont Peak Park. And before I go into the park, I was actually going to just highlight from a distance. We're lucky enough to have this little teeny tiny little park real close to my house, and it was saved from construction by a Friends of group. Before I go into the park, I wanted to also highlight this little area across the way. Some dinosaurs hanging out. I think they're appreciating Native Plant Month. One plant I really wanted to highlight first was these beautiful bracken ferns coming up. You can see them unraveling slowly. And I highlighted this plant because it's all over this hillside with all these dinosaurs enjoying the views of Fremont Peak Park, which I'm going to walk into now. This park is definitely an upland forest. It's a Doug fir, western hemlock, dwarf Oregon grape, and sword fern are the target forest type. So you walk in, you can see these beautiful vine maples unraveling. They're just starting to fruit out right now. Acis circinatum, botanical name. A lot of you would know this plant maybe. Sword fern, also raveling out right now. There's a lot of hemlocks in this park, which makes sense since it's in its target ecosystem. There's a lot of beautiful low Oregon grape. Here it is blooming. Dwarf Oregon grape, low Oregon grape, because it grows real low to the ground versus an upright relative, which I will also show you. Here's a cedar also kind of snuggling together, which makes sense. They like to grow next to each other. This park's really neat because it has the moon phases. I want to highlight it. It's pretty neat. So it's got this all the different moon cycle in the park. Here is some snowberry. You can see the berries all dried up from last year. The fruit from snowberry is white. In the wintertime, that's all you see left is little berries everywhere, and it drops all of its foliage. Symphiacarbus albus. I love the name. A friend of mine always told me it's an easy one to remember, Eric. It's a symphony of carpus. It's a symphony of plants. Here's more vine maple leafing out. Let's go see if there's any bees on that Oregon grape. It's on all its glory right now, blooming. The cedar, this park, so for as far as stuff being planted in this park, for the Green Seattle Partnership, we only are responsible for the view area, and I'll show it's a slope. This park was planted, I think, by a combination of the Friends of group who maintain it, which is not part of the Green Seattle Partnership, but it's part of parks. And here's their sign. If anybody is ever interested in coming to volunteer at their park. So obviously, unfortunately, sad face, they're postponed. But that being said, I do know that they have regular work parties here. I wanted to stroll over here to more hemlocks. Well, first off, we should highlight these beautiful little cones on these baby Doug fir. I bet if I hit them, the pollen will come out. It's pollen everywhere right now, and that's because of these beauties. Pseudosugomenzizii, the botanical name of the Doug fir. This is a small one. You can imagine there was a home here, so they left a foundation and they used it in this little lawn area. And there's some more Doug fir up there. All that skyline right there is Doug fir, and then there's a cedar. And here's the Doug fir cone, which I always like, these little tails that stick out of the cones. Just since we're highlighting the entire park, it's really neat. They have these like little areas you can hang out. It's pretty fun. For how small the park is, they really maximize the space. All right, on to more native plants. So here is the hemlock I was wanting to talk about. Look at this teeny tiny little cone on this hemlock. Tsuga heterophylla is a botanical name. The hemlock, it's got very small little needles. What does the underside of these needles look like? It's always helpful for me because they have these silver striations. If I can get that good picture of that. Here's the mature cones all over the hemlock and some baby new cones. Let's see if we can highlight that. There's the baby cones. There's the little tiny little baby cones, and then there's previous year cones blowing in the wind. I hope the wind's not too loud on my microphone. There's also a helicopter here hovering nearby, so. This is a fun one. Some serviceberry that just finished blooming. Amelanchier. This is genus. I agree, those baby cones are so cute, Maya. The serviceberry, it leafed out early, similar to Indian plum, which we do not have any in this park, but it's already done its thing. It's leafed out and bloomed. Amelanchier grandiflora, I believe, is the botanical name. Here's some more. There's a little bit of flower left. There's a little bit of nectar probably still left in those hummingbirds, bumblebees. Here's more snowberry. It's everywhere in this park. A lot of snowberry. And more low organ grape. Can't help to throw in a daffodil. Why not? It's not native, but they don't cause any harm. All right. I really like this time of year because you really can see the new growth on the cedars. They're just pushing orange tips. I'm in the shadow, I believe. Let's see if I get it. It's a fun name on the cedar, Thulia baccata. I know we talked about it at the wetland walk, but it's fun to look at the bark. This is a baby, so it hasn't quite matured yet. There's another nice little sword fern, a little frond unraveling out. Let's go back and look at those little hemlock cones. It's actually the first time I've seen them because usually you're not so high. This park is unique because these trees are on an elevated area. The baby cones, yes, they're purple. Look at them. Let's see if I can get the camera to focus on it again. I've been noticing a lot of wildlife in this little park. The canopy has been preserved enough to, we've got lots and lots of wildlife. So I got to highlight this park. This is a big factor of what people love about this park. Is the view. It's absolutely stunning. Great views. The Olympics here. It's really what the focus of this park is all about. There's other park users, so I'm trying not to be too disruptive. More of moon phases. Anyways, let's go over here. So this oak is just starting to leaf out. You can see its buds. They're slower. You can see last year's leaves. They have a tendency. Fremont Peak Park is where we are. So I was going back and forth on this special plant over here, on the identity of it, and here's more vine maple leafing out. I've actually seen hummingbirds feed on the flowers on the vine maples. But onto this little plant that really grabbed my attention when I was here surveying yesterday. It's unfortunately not native to the Northwest. There's a relative. This one is just about Solomon seal. Just about ready to open. But it's not native, so it's not invasive. We plant false lily of the valley and feathery lily of the valley. Anyways, I really wanted to still look at it. So for the target forest type for this park, again, dung fir, hemlock, low Oregon grape, and sword fern, it really makes sense. Here's a great kind of gallery of that right here. So really nice. These are, believe it or not, low Oregon grape, but they're huge. Look at how big they are. So, I mean, they call it dwarf, but it's small. And here's some more sword fern in all of its glory. I like when the fronds are just raveling out. The Solomon seal. So this particular Solomon seal, it is native to North America. But ours does not have the little droopy little flowers like that. Ours has a terminal flower at the end. So another great plant that is really, I think, showing off right now is the evergreen huckleberry. Which would make sense because it's really dominant in this forest type. Something called the new growth, pushing red. I grew up on the other side of the mountains, so this plant we don't have, and our huckleberries are deciduous. We don't have evergreen huckleberry. And I'm not used to how small the berries are. I bet I could find some where the little berries are coming out from. The new growth that you can see versus there's what it looked like last year. And it develops these spots, I think sometimes to trick birds. So those are not berries, and it's probably something that it gets, but I don't see the flowers yet. This one's pretty shady. This lovely sword fern already leafed out. It's doing great. You can watch the snowberry dance in the wind. I noticed this park gets lots and lots of folks, lots of use. We don't have, we have Woodland Park in the top of Fremont, but this is the closest park for me to walk to. A little patch of nature for birds and for people. Squirrels. All right. So here's the bark. The Doug fir. You can see some sap running out. And this is probably the largest one. You can see in the bark, it's really, when a tree gets a lot more mature, it starts to do this great kind of, it's deep. I could stick my finger in there. I don't know how well. I can imagine if we didn't have this park in this neighborhood. We're lucky. I'm trying to be respectful of other park users if you wonder why I'm whispering. But it's nice. They have this little seated area in here. So I've often come to the park and there's people out there reading and taking a break. Let's see what else we have for native plants. Oh yeah, I know what one I wanted to talk about. So here's a baby Doug fir, Dougie. I wasn't around for Dougie, maybe some people were, but so here's the new growth coming out on a Doug fir. Can you see that very well? So it's going to push this right here. This length is last year's growth. It really is growing, this baby. I'm at Fremont Peak Park. This is my first time being on Instagram Live, so pardon me if I'm not answering questions. I'm sorry I missed that. Or maybe I already answered it. This is a hybrid park, so there's definitely a heavy native canopy in here. Of course, you're welcome, Court Crooked. Like your Instagram name there. So, here's another fun plant. Any guesses? Fragaria. Probably not necessarily our native strawberry. It's really hard identifying it. It looks a little bit similar to it. It's also really fun to look at things this time of year when things are leafing out. There's a new leaf coming out right there. All right. Well, here's some nice, beautiful catkins. These are in some birch. And I bet if I get it just right, you can see the pollen. Look at the pollen going off of these. So the catkins come out first. Alders, birch. You can see the bark on these. These are not necessarily native, not invasive. These are probably paper bark birch, I'm guessing. Betula pepperifia. Probably completely annihilated the botanical name, but here's the leaves coming out on the birch right here. So the catkins come first. They will be cones. I don't see any cones from last year in the tree. And there's the leaves coming out. Let's go look at the bark. I love paper bark birch. The bark is molting right now. It's beautiful. There's the underside. It just molts away. When I studied Lewis and Clark, they actually made journals with the bark. And I'm sure Native Americans used a similar material. We don't have a lot of birch in Seattle that are, it's more of a, we have gotten some birch before. We have a hard time finding good places to plant it. All right. So being that this is dominant forest type of sword fern, blue Oregon grape, of course we will have salal, lots and lots of salal. So the salal here's some buds in the salal. Again, you can see that beautiful pink. See if I can get the camera to focus. So it's still leafing out. I just adore this time of year with the spring growth. It's an early window. I think it's underappreciated. You get some really neat colors. This is a nice stand of Oregon grape. You can see a little Oregon grape in this salal blooming. And Mike Gadrick will be highlighting this next week on Monday. You should tune in. There's a nice little madrone here, and I don't think these were planted. Not positive, though. It's also fun how the bark peels off on the madrones. And this madrone's doing quite well. It's pushing its new growth. Gonna bloom. Salal, yeah, salal is right here. Gaultheria. Salal is dominant on a lot of our target forests in the city and outside of the city with sword fern. There's a nice patch of it here, hanging out with this madrone. And more blue Oregon grape blooming. Oregon grape has a lot of thorns on it. See if I can get a big good picture of it there. Tall Oregon grape even has even more. Thanks, Maya, yeah. Thanks for the scientific name there. There's another nice madrone back there, and then this hemlock has seen the end of its life, it looks like. It's not looking very good. That's all right. Woodpeckers will like it. And it's not all the way there yet. Let's see. If anybody was wondering, we're at Fremont Peak Park, looking at an upland forest. Here's some beautiful vine maples. Vine maples, these haven't leafed out yet, which surprised me. Yep, future snag for sure. There's another view of it. Here's more salal, more Oregon grape. I did want to highlight again the bud break on the vine maples. I like the bark on the vine maples. Like beautiful coloring. Asus urcinatum. You can see new growth of kind of this purple. The older growth has more of just kind of your green. It's interesting though, this vine maple is not as leafed out and just across this way from this walkway. So I think there is a crow, and I think that's a crow right there. The other sound I think is a woodpecker. I've been seeing the woodpeckers really active. And there's some good apps for birds. I don't have one specifically to recommend though. So I just thought I'd highlight how this vine maple right across the way, this one's blooming right here. See if I can get good light on it. I've seen hummingbirds come up and grab nectar off of the vine maples. There we go. There's the little flowers on the vine maples. You know, it's interesting. You bring up the topic about construction and the impacts to this suga. I think anytime there's some construction in a park, I mean, that's way up there, and this was all old housing. Yeah, definitely a potential relationship, I'd say, anytime you're in a critical root zone. But they didn't really build anything, so they cut this foundation out and took this house out. And so I'd say that you know, that hemlock's is already there, living like that. But we don't know what's going on next door, though. But interesting to bring up. So my last plant I'm going to highlight. I'm going to sneak through here. This is tall Oregon grape. So there's a lot of low Oregon grape in here. There's the tall Oregon grape. Beautiful leaves coming out. Not blooming, so this one just started to bloom. It's got very early bud. So it's just kind of interesting to note the differences between the low and the tall Oregon grape. Mahonias. Yeah, that's a woodpecker up there. And interesting, the crow is having a discussion. I got a couple more minutes left. Does anybody have any questions about plants we've looked at? I hope it was interesting. Fremont Peak Park is a great little park. Oh, here's some more vine maple coming out, ready to bloom. Yeah, I think, you know, I asked one time about crows' harassment of birds. Raptors don't care, but I'm pretty sure that's a woodpecker. Again, Fremont Peak Park.
What's happening? I think you up there in end zone.
Here's some more serviceberry blooming on a lankier. Park has a lot of users, so I was being respectful of others. Any comments on the Rosa? You know, comments on it, it keeps people from going too far to the edge, and it has to be maintained. I don't necessarily have strong feelings about it. This park is not under my jurisdiction, except the hillside below it. But we do have problems with it, with the Rosa rugosa. Not at this park, but it's obviously got to be a maintenance issue, but it keeps people off the edge because it drops quick there. There's an old history of a landslide on the edge of this park, which I did not highlight because I cannot get on that edge. So I am about done. Does anybody else have any questions? Here's some more baby. I think these are baby volunteers. 2 baby Doug firs. That vine maple did not make it in the middle. Oregon grape looking good. Interesting. Yes, I do. I do think that we see ecologically disruptive, aggressive nature. Feel free to send us a message. Please tune in next Monday with Michael Yadrick. He'll be surveying some madrone, and I think it's going to be great. So please tune in, and please follow our website. We have great things on the blog. Thanks to everybody for tuning in, and thanks to everybody that helps us maintain our urban forests. Enjoy the sunshine and have a great weekend, everyone.